your model should be called our Victor. And I will go with you now and share with you a few verses that I encountered in the Quran. And first of all, I just wanted to tell your audience or whoever listens to this video in the future that I have done a lots of research and lots of questions that came to my mind since childhood. And I know they cross people's minds since childhood. But because I was born and raised in Islamic culture, and then I moved to the West and also visited Europe a lot in my life, I lived between the two cultures, Eastern and Western culture. And I realized that majority of people that are living in the West are, I would say, largely ignorant of the depth of the Islamic culture. And also, it's a two-way street. Also, when you go to the East, they have no idea about the Western people and, also their culture here. So I feel education is really the peaceful solution of substantial issues that are happening. And I understand from my own experiences, as well as my background in physics, when I encountered your work as a physicist, and from your experience and your background, I found like everything that you speak about is in the Quran. And the Quran states in so many chapters that it preserved all the scriptures that have been sent to humanity from before. So, mostly every messenger that existed on earth was mentioned in the Quran. Every prophet, every wise person, everyone was mentioned in the Quran. So, as a child, was born into that culture, but I also was very skeptic kid. I had that knowing out of nowhere. As a kid, I had the knowing, like this is a universal call, cannot be just to this people that live here in the East, because it's addressing humanity in general. And then it's bringing all the wisdom of every wise person that existed before. And it's all talking about peace, talking about the history of humanity. What's our purpose on earth? And then what's the goal? Where are we heading? Like, and then I listen to your videos and I feel like, has Tom read the Quran before? Did he go through it? Does he have any idea about it? And every time you have a video, I was guided, to the exact verses. And I wanted to share with you today and see where the discussion will lead us.
To answer that question, no, Tom has no, just as ignorant of the Quran as most everybody else in the West. I have no association with it at all. Although I have read some Eastern philosophy, I've read some Buddhist philosophy, and I've read some Zen,
Uh-huh.
and not much, but just enough to know sort of
Yeah.
what they were about. I've uh, I've looked at the Bhagavad Gita. I've read part of that. I did not
Uh-huh.
finish that. I've read some Tibetan Buddhism, but then all of that was, oh, I don't know, 50 years ago. Yeah, that was a long, long time ago. Back when I was in my 20s, I read those things out of some, just interest in the philosophies of other people. But I never read anything at all that
In the
was,
Quran.
yeah, that was connected to the Quran.
I also noticed, especially in America, they know Rumi, and his books are all over, and they talk about his poetry. And then when I tell them, but Rumi was Quran, like embodied
Yeah,
Quran, he was
yeah,
Muslim. They say no, he was a Sufi. I'm like, a Sufi means
right.
is.
Yeah, and I actually did read a little Sufi.
Mhm,
Um, oh, it was a little thin book, Sufi stories.
uh-huh.
And I read that, and that was one of my favorite books. I did like that a lot because the stories were excellent, and I still sometimes use them when I'm uh,
Mhm.
talking to people because they make such a great point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was trying to think of writer's name. I can't remember that now, but yeah, I did get to a little bit of Sufi, and I was aware that that was, part of Islam. That it was one of the, almost all the religions have the mystical schools that go with it. So you had the Gnostics in Christianity, but the Sufis have their mystical schools. The Sufis, but the Islam has their mystical schools, and Sufi is one of those. And it's in these kind of the mystical schools of all the various religions is where I found the things that were most connected to, my own thoughts.
Okay.
So
Tom, when you are saying religions, it's a point that I wanted to address. When I was young and I came to the States and I met an older lady, she was like Kristen, she was 82, and she kept telling me, my religion, your religion. And I tell her, like, we are both from one source. And then that led me to research in the Quran. What are other religions in the Quran? So I started early that research. And to my surprise, I did not find the word religion in the Quran in the plural at all. It always comes in the singular form, and there is no word religion. In the Quran, you only find the word that shocked me. It says system, just like you say the system. And I was like,
wow.
what? The system? And I kept that in the back of my mind, and I went throughout my journey, young
Mhm.
kid, keep going like in her life until I met you. And then when you talk the system, I say like, that must be Tom read the Quran, and that's where he found and, and that's why the Quran never mentioned religions at all. It always, like, there are things in the Quran that I could never find in the plural. I never found the word consciousness in plural, always comes as one consciousness. Never found the word light in plural. Never found the word deen, which people translate as religions. But when I digged into the root words, I found that the meaning is system. Now, one thing I wanted to clarify, Tom, is my interpretation of the Quran is completely different than what's online. So I realized, like, over the time, people put their own interpretations of what they understood of the Quran, got translated to English and to so many languages. But me, as a skeptic child from childhood, I was refusing that. I was saying there is no way God would say that. So that there is no way God would say that led me to stop I was just like you doing my PhD. At first, I started in quantum physics. Then I decided to go to aerospace engineering. And then I said, like, what am I doing here? I don't need a PhD in this. I wanted really to know my way in this life. I was just led to stop that PhD and continue the research about you know, my consciousness research. So then when I studied the true Quranic Arabic, and I went to learn even the sounds, like the sound of each letter, what it means from the beginning. So not only what the word means at the time of the revelation of the Quran, but the sound of each letter. So it was a long journey of understanding this for me to put that interpretation together. So the first verse that came to my mind to share with you, Tom, today was the verse that when I came to your immersive and you were telling us this is a game, this is a virtual reality. In your immersive, I was guided to this verse. It's chapter 57, verse 20. And it's telling people, know that the immediate life is only a play. So you see this word life in Arabic, any child that you ask him, even if they don't have a deep Arabic word, then you tell him what is life means, they say a play. So it says this life is just a play and a distraction and a beauty, but it gives it the metaphor. It is just like, a rainfall that has, brings produce, and the farmers get delighted with it. And then it becomes yellow and it goes away. And at the end, it concluded that verse by saying, and the immediate life that we see now, that we live in this life, is nothing but enjoyment of illusion. And I was like, aha, Tom keeps telling this, this is a virtual reality. It is just like an illusion. And the Quran is stating that. So I don't know what you have to comment about this, Tom. Or...
Well, that's exactly what I say. You know, life is only play. It's a game. It's
Okay.
you know, and the immediate life is nothing but enjoyment of illusion. Absolutely, I agree with
Yeah.
those with those statements
Statement.
entirely.
Yeah. The other thing is, when I have been coming to your immersives, we talked about there were two evolutions going on simultaneously, the evolution of the avatar that you call the avatar and the evolution of consciousness. So the avatar, basically what you call avatar, in my understanding in the Quranic verses, is consciousness needs a vehicle through which it is transformed to a state of active being. And this vehicle basically is what we call the body. And, so what I understand, consciousness is transformed from what we call a potential, like we call it in Arabic, quwa, potential state, potential state to a kinetic state. So that's what I understood from this verse here. Like it says, as the avatar is evolving, okay, it says when the avatar is ready. Okay, so that's basically what we call source, the LCS, putting the plan together, the blueprint. It says, I expanded into it my consciousness. So the word ruh in Arabic is the consciousness. So there is an expansion of consciousness through this avatar, the human body. So what the Quran states in so many verses, I didn't bring all of them. It states that we were so many humanoid and basically an animal that's just living out of instincts. Years ago, that changed to an expansion of consciousness through this human avatar. And it says an expansion of my consciousness. So there is only one consciousness that is expanding through those avatars that you called in your model the IUOCs.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what you can tell more because I came to your, immersives and I picked all of those and I was guided to put them together with the Quranic verses. So I just want you to expand on that, please.
Yeah. Well, again, I use different metaphors, but
Mm-hmm.
they seem to mean the same thing. I use a little different language, obviously, because the
Uh-huh.
Quran was written a long, long time ago when language was a bit different than it is now.
Yeah.
They don't have all the computing metaphors, at that time that we have now, and I've employed a lot of the computational metaphors in my model just because it's something that today it's easier for people to understand those metaphors than it is the poetry of the past. But it's pretty obvious that what I say and the way you've interpreted, the Quran, and it's the same thing.
It's the same.
Yes, you have the larger consciousness system, and it needed ways to express itself so that it could continue its evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And it did that by taking pieces of itself and logging on to these avatars, which it produced in a virtual reality that it created with initial conditions and a set of rules, created the reality, and basically it had to play all parts until we had a character that served as a good vehicle for experience, for consciousness to learn and to grow. And when it did, then they individuated units of consciousness logged on. So that's pretty much the same idea,
Yeah.
the same concept.
it's the same idea, not only the idea. I feel like even the wording, like it
Is
says when
similar.
it's
Yeah.
ready, you can log in into it.
Hmm.
And also another verse, like you always speak in your, in your workshops, you talk about the consciousness is the driver. And so this verse here, chapter 50, 21, it talks about like when we die and we go to the transition center, it says every entity comes with a driver and then
Uh-huh.
the witness. And the word driver is the consciousness, and the witness is your what you call the free awareness unit. So when you said that in your workshop, I mean, I think like they're working with me. The LCS is working with me constantly, telling me, "See, that's that verse." So I went and they said he's using the word driver. He's saying the same thing in that
Hmm.
verse.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
even 1500 years ago,
Yeah.
the word driver was used because sa'iq, even a child who doesn't know this fancy Quranic language, he will tell you sa'iq is a driver. Like we
Hmm.
say sa'iq, sayara, driver of a car.
Yeah.
So and that verse says it like every entity will come into the transition center. Basically, that's where the IUOC is like, okay, you did this. Now let's move, have this
Yeah.
collection of experiences. Let's move on. And it's beautifully said, and I will share with you also this verse. I mean, I'm just amazed, Tom, with your work because like it gets me so excited. Like I was looking for a scientist who can put this together, and you did. So in this verse, it says, "It is it indeed about source." Like Allah is just source, so it doesn't matter how you call it, but we're speaking about the same thing.
Yeah.
It it is it indeed who begins and repeats, like how life cycles, repeats and begins,
Hmm.
and it is the forgiving. So basically, death is really the only way to let go of that experience and pick up another package. The unconditionally loving. See, the word would in Arabic is beyond the love. So it's famous. We say hub is love, but would is the unconditional love. Is just love, and it doesn't matter what experience. It's just like okay, evolve to this loving, and then possessor of the exalted blueprint. So from this verse I'm like, oh, this is what Tom keeps talking about, is it doesn't matter what experience, because you know you're going to have to go through all these life cycles to evolve to what we call unconditional love. So hopefully we'll
Hmm.
get there, Tom, sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I often say that unconditional love is the only kind of love there is.
Yeah,
If it's not unconditional, it's not love.
it's not, it's like,
It's something else.
yeah,
Yes. It's like it's need. It's a lot of things, but love is something you just give away because you want to. It's not doesn't come with conditions.
so when we get there as a humanity, we will not have wars, we will not have any killing, we will live peacefully
Oh,
and we'll save
even
Earth.
yeah, even more than that. We not only won't have any wars and killings, but we will each try very hard to make
Mhm,
sure that everybody else has what the support, our support to become whatever they can become.
mhm.
And everybody will want us to become whatever we can become.
Come.
So you will find this mutual support among people that we realize there's things that need to be done, and we'll all pretty much pitch in to do them according to our interests, our skills, our abilities, and nobody will see themselves as superior. Nobody will see themselves as more deserving. We will all be delighted to give and give unconditionally and help each other to the best of our ability, and it will be a beautiful place. And one thing I like to point out on this particular subject is there's many people who, when they hear the word collective, they think of a socialism collective or a communist collective, and it's everybody doing what they're told,
Mhm,
kind of thing. But that is what you get when you have a collective among fear based people.
mhm.
This collective will be love based people. And that's entirely different. When you have a collective that's love-based, then you have a maximum of freedom, a maximum of choice, of things to be. And you can basically be whatever it is you want to be and have the capacity and the interest to be. And the system you're in, the social system you're in, rather than finding a kind of a pigeonhole for you to get into and a job to do, you will be able to develop yourself according to your own wishes. The freedom in that is tremendous. The freedom in that, the personal freedom to make choices to do what you want to do, is the greatest of any social system. So we not only won't have wars and killing, but we'll have opportunities to grow and to become and be and connect and develop our full potential and maximum personal freedom.
And that's what I call the heaven. People think like when I die, I'm gonna go to heaven. But I keep explaining heaven is the new earth that we create from all our experiences. And if we don't get to that unconditional love, we will be still in what I call the purification. And that's one word I found in the Quran that bothered me. People translate it as punishment. And I keep saying there is no such punishment. And I digged into the word adab, and it's an Arabic word for purification. So we are just here to purify ourselves, to grow, to evolve, and help other species, like you said, to evolve to what we want to get to. So we will get there, but we won't get there until we learn how to use our own intuition, like you always say, Tom. And what I found amazing with your workshops, and especially like the ones you used to give, the long immersive ones, I'm lucky I took one with you before you stopped them, is like is how you teach people to do remote viewing, healing, how to use their consciousness, how to get there. So myself, I was fortunate to have them as a gift since childhood. I was born with those gifts, like those abilities, and but I never knew how to show others how to do them. So until I came to your immersive and I learned from you how to use them, now I found myself helping others. Like, oh, if you go through that process, and what you teach us in those immersive stuff, I found a verse in the Quran about Jesus. And I was like, in fact, I was sharing it with everybody at MBT, telling them, like, this is what Tom has been teaching us. Like, where is that verse about? Yeah, here. It's this one. Yeah. So it talks to Jesus how he came to the children of Israel, and it's saying, I'm here to teach you how to basically co-create. And see, this word kahay'a in Arabic is like how you make a shape of something in your mind, like you tell us to visualize. And basically, that's how Tom Spark is based on how you visualize and use your consciousness. And then in yellow, it's in Arabic here. In the English, it says, and help you how to heal, how to bring back the dead. Here it doesn't mean I bring someone who was completely dead, but in organs or whatever you have in your body that you feel is dying, you can heal it. And also it talks about remote viewing. So I said, oh my gosh, we take with Tom how you co-create, how you know, change future probability, how you can remote view, how you can heal. All of these things are in the Quran, mentioning how Jesus came to do so and help humanity. So Jesus already started that many years ago, but we're not doing it. I don't know why. I mean, they played with the Bible as much as they played with also the interpretation of the Quran. I don't know who's playing with it. I don't know if it was meant to be, or was some people doing it in purpose. Who knows? But all I know is everything is there. So I was fortunate to be in your immersives to see you're basically teaching us what Jesus had brought thousands of years ago, but people are not doing it. Nobody is really using that power that we have. we're basically just using, and like you keep saying, like just developing our intellectual abilities and ignoring our intuition. And if we use that, we can heal, we can do remote viewing, we can help humanity remote viewing. You can even detect where people are stealing kids or doing things like that. So we could have done a lot with that. But I was really amazed, Tom, to find all of that is in the Quran. So as a Muslim, I feel like why are we're not doing this, and why all other people like they hear it's Jesus, it means it talks about it's in the Bible. But I'm just glad that I found this, and I'm happy that you brought to us this model so that can people use it. So what I try to also tell people after I found you, it's not a physicist of physics. People get scared to hear physics, IUOC, things like that. I said, this is real life. Like you're helping us to just change our lives, day to day things, live the moment, how to use your consciousness, how to solve your life issues. All of that is used by just following those techniques. So I don't know if you have any comment about this, Tom.
Yeah, part of the reason you started out very early, maybe we didn't get the recording going in time to catch this, but you were saying that I should have named the book Our Big Toe instead of My Big Toe.
Yes.
But of course, the reason that I named it My Big Toe was because I also say that if it's not your experience, then it can't be your truth. That one of the big problems we have is belief rather than looking at our own experience and then coming to conclusions and coming to understanding based on our own experience. And when we believe the experience of others, we tend to cut ourselves off from our own experience. So we did that with with the paranormal things, with the intuitive things, as our culture grew more and more object oriented, more and more technical. We had first we were just a bunch of loose of tribes, but once we started finding cities, and in cities, you have people who are specialized in fixing shoes and people who are specialized in building houses, and we start to specialize, and it becomes what you know intellectually that's important. We tended to lose these abilities to perceive all of the things that consciousness allows us to perceive and to understand. And we kind of forgot that we had this intuitive side, and we started building on, I guess, the technical side, which is mostly the left brain logical side. And that got to the point that we're terribly unbalanced now. We as human beings are very unbalanced. We have this very highly developed left brain for logical thinking, and our culture rewards us for that. The people who do this very complex and technical work get the higher salaries, and the people who are very right-brained, who just are intuitive, they get kidded a lot. They call them space cadets and other things. So they get the lowest salaries. So our culture rewards intellectual work and does not reward very well intuitive work. And that's a terrible imbalance in us. The best way to approach life is with a very strong intellect and a very strong intuition, both. You need to develop both of them. But in our culture, particularly Western culture, and I'm not that familiar with Eastern culture, but I think even Eastern culture is starting to look like Western culture for the most part. Western culture is kind of dominating everything because that's where the products come from, that's where the computers come from, and the industrial revolution, and all of that is logical process thinking. And the deeper things that are more meaningful, such as beauty and truth and love and caring and justice and, you know, all of those are not objective things. They're all subjective things. They all take place in the mind. It's our attitudes and our feelings. And we don't develop that subjective part. We don't develop our intuitive part hardly at all. It's just there. And most of us don't even have a 3-year-old's ability to deal in intuitive space. 3-year-olds have a greater ability than most adults do of being intuitive. So here we are with this well-developed intellect and this, newborn, almost, 1-year-old intuitive side. And that's a really big shame. We're terribly out of balance. And because of that out of balance is why we have so many of the problems that we have in our culture, is why there is so much fear and so much dysfunction, is because we are very out of balance as a being. We need to develop that intuitive side. We need to develop the subjective part of our being, our mind, our consciousness, our feelings, how we understand, the world to be. What's the world all about? What's important and what's not? What's right? What's wrong? All of these things fall over to that subjective side. And the objective side that science describes, well, that's like the props on the stage. Where the subjective side is like the actors and what they're saying. Well, nobody goes to a play to watch the props. You go to a play to listen to what the actors are saying and how they feel and what they're doing and why they're doing it. That's the story. The props are just the props. Well, the props are important, it helps set the story, but we look at the objective side and the science side, and we say that's all there is. That's the whole life. So you can imagine a whole bunch of people that only are interested in the props. When it comes to what the actors are doing and why they're doing it, that's nonsense, and that isn't real. Well, that's just very, very backwards. It's that subjective side that is the most important to us, not the objective side. We live in this world and we need to understand it. Science is a good thing. It's necessary. I'm glad that we have created things like computers and washing machines and dishwashers and houses that are warm, in the winter and cool in the summer. These are all wonderful things, but they don't contain a whole lot of meaning. They don't contain a whole lot of substance that's real valuable. That's all on the subjective side and on the intuitive side. So yes, I wanted to teach people that you are a piece of consciousness. And as a piece of consciousness, you have abilities to interact, consciousness to consciousness. You have abilities to understand things at an intuitive level, not just an intellectual level. There's information out there that we get, we share, we use it, and we don't even know we're doing it. It's just, we just do it and we're not even aware of it, but we do it anyway. We're just not very good at it. It just happens whenever it happens. It doesn't happen when we want it and need it. It just happens. So it's much better to learn how to do that, to learn all of the skills and all of the content that is available to you as a consciousness and how to access it. And yes, that includes all of those paranormal things. The conscious to consciousness communication goes on all the time. People do it. They just don't realize that they're doing it. Yeah. The idea that you can understand how other people feel, that intuitive sense of what's going on in another person's mind and what their needs are and where they're coming from. Well, that is not part of the objective world. That's entirely intuitive that you get this information. So the remote viewing, the gathering of information that's available within the consciousness system, all of that is our birthright as consciousness. And as you develop these skills, it's not just that learning paranormal things is a good thing. Paranormal things in themselves are kind of neither here nor there. But as you learn paranormal, as you gather paranormal abilities, you start to see a bigger picture. This is what's important about paranormal abilities, not the abilities themselves.
Yeah.
It's as you have these abilities, you start seeing bigger pictures, and you realize that you're just a very small speck within a huge system.
Huge system.
A huge system that has meaning and has purpose, and that you're a part of that flow and a part of that purpose. And once you see that, then it changes your whole viewpoint of life and people and love and caring. And it's coming to that big picture that is what's important. And the paranormal things help you see that. Because once you get this information that solves your problem, and there's no way you could have known that, but you just know it. And you think, well, where did that come from? Well, once you understand where that does come from and why you're able to get it, now it makes you a kinder person. It makes you a more thoughtful person and a more caring person, because that understanding has to do with who we are and why we're here and what our purpose is. So the paranormal is just learning to get paranormal powers. Well, the paranormal powers are like the pretty flower that attracts the bee. It's something that attracts people because they want these paranormal powers, but that's not the point. Once you begin to understand, which is what's required in order you to get those paranormal powers, is to understand, to get some discipline within your thinking and within your mind. And all of that leads to a greater understanding of reality and why we're here and what's going on, and appreciation of other people. And it completely kind of takes away your sense of superiority, because everybody's in the same boat that you're in. We're all trying to do the best we can with what we've got, struggling, trying to get rid of our fear. And we're all kind of wherever we are doing the best we can. And you don't see yourself as better than or worse than anybody else. So then you look at a lot of dysfunction in the world, and instead of getting angry, you have an understanding of why the world is like that, why people are like that. And that's a much better place to be than shaking your fist and say, oh, you stupid people, why are you so stupid doing all these awful things? That just adds to the problem. That's one more irate, angry person now that's added to the problem. But if you can look at that and see that it is the way it is, because that's the way we are. It's our nature. It's what we're doing. We're growing. We have to get rid of our fear. And we've got a long way to go. We're not there yet. We have this huge fear that we have to get rid of until we can see these bigger pictures. And actually doing the paranormal things, if you learn to do them well, you have to get rid of your fear, because it's your fear that prevents you from doing them for the most part.
Yeah.
And so an exercise in those pretty flowers you're attracted to because of the power, well, suddenly it's not about the power at all. The power kind of goes away, and it's about life and love and caring and understanding. So yes, I teach people paranormal things, but again, not because having paranormal powers makes you a super person. It's because having paranormal powers gives you humility and lets you see a bigger picture and understand things. And almost everybody turns that corner. many people start with, oh yeah, I'd love to be able to remote view. I'd love to be able to know what's going on here or there. And it would be so cool to do these things. But that's just the way they start. After they've been doing it for, 3 or 4 or 5 years, that that kind of self-centered attitude starts to disappear, and they start seeing themselves because they start understanding a bigger picture. They start seeing themselves in a totally different context, and it's not about power anymore at all. It's about being more caring and helpful.
It's about like myself, like I was born with it, and I think you're the one who guided me to realize, like, you know, oh, it's natural for me. That's why I was like
Mhm.
trying to learn the tools. But growing up, I recall I had those abilities, and I thought everybody's like me. And I always knew I am consciousness, I am not the body. And I go to exams without preparing much, and I just sit down and I know I just connect and I know how to solve the problems. Was always a student without much effort because
Mhm.
I just like use like those abilities. And then of course, like I always knew naturally if when I receive information, I need to process it through my vehicle and put it to my intellect and then see how I can use that information and expand and help the others. So I was always
Mhm.
like teaching my friends and helping everybody, telling them the informations I received. And then I realized like I started to be called the weird one because like, she's weird. How does she know the future? Nobody knows the future. So then they put you like in that corner, like, who are you to speak about
Mhm.
future? So I feel like most people like are aware, they turn to slow down and don't share much because they don't fit. So I do remember like I spent so much time trying to just fit in and not share what I know. And then even if I am using my awareness to receive the information and to solve problems and to do good for my schoolwork, I tend to just tell people, "Oh, yeah, you just have to work on it." Like, we hide that. But now I felt like after that, and I gained my confidence, of course, and I became an educator. I felt like, okay, why don't I teach the kids to use those abilities and
Mhm.
also, like when you said about this in the West, which I think the West is influencing the East and everything is changing, hopefully we can now catch things and change them to the better. Because when I came to this country and I was teaching math, they're not even using the intellect that much. They're making people just memorize facts. So
Yeah.
we're not teaching people to be skeptical. We're not helping kids to be, you know, critical thinkers. We're just making people memorize and believe in whatever the teachers are telling them. So
Yeah.
we got to confuse people more. New generation is more confused. Kids are completely confused. So as an educator, I realize we're not developing whether the intellect or the intuition. We're not
Mhm.
developing anything because really teaching math in this country made me feel depressed. And then I said, like, okay, what's there to do? Should I create a new program to teach the true math? Math is not about, the computer can do the counting and the memorization. Math about developing the critical thinking skills. If I
Mhm.
am a consciousness that's supposed to be evolving, first thing is I'm not supposed to repeat the life of my parents and my elders and I'm supposed to expand and do better. So we're supposed to evolve to something better, not a copy paste of what was done before.
Mhm.
So they don't have that ability yet, the students in the West. Even in the East, they're just following now. And we don't even develop the intuitive side. That's basically you tap to the database, you can see the future probability, you can change it and make a better outcome for you. So I felt like when I met you and we spoke before about like, okay, what should I pick to be a healer after I got the certified healer or to be an educator? I feel myself like more toward the education. If I can help with the education, help put something based on your model and based on the spiritualities that I gained also from the Quran, we may have a better outcome for the future generation. But honestly, we're not, I mean, in my own experience as an educator, we're not developing the intellect as well.
No, that's true. We're really not. I think it's, the system, not the larger conscious system, but our social system.
Yeah.
Our social system has created, a lot of these problems that we have. What we're doing when we put people in school and get them to memorize things, yes, I call that kind of math plug and chug. You just memorize what are the steps to get from A to B and solve the problem, and you do that. But it doesn't teach you to think or understand. It only teaches you to get right answers. And what you have then is you have a person who's been through school, been through college, been through graduate school, and if they run into a problem that they didn't see in a book, they can't solve it.
They can't do it.
They can't do it. They say, well, I haven't been taught how to solve this problem, so I don't know how to solve it and can't do it. And they're just stuck because they can't really think for themselves. They only can regurgitate what's been stuffed into their heads. And that's unfortunate. So it creates people who are not creative.
Mm-hmm.
It creates people who are not inventive, can't think out of the box.
Yeah.
And what happens is that when you have a majority that's one way, then they tend to look down at all the minorities that are a different way. So then anybody who can think out of the box, oh, they're a problem. I can remember when my son was in school, and of course I was helping teach him. And when I taught him math, I taught him how to understand it. And he often would not solve a problem the same way the teacher would. The teacher would solve it this way, but with mathematics, there's 100 different ways to approach a problem. It's the underlying logic is what's important and why that logic is true.
Mm-hmm.
So he would approach the problem a little differently and get the same answer, but he would be marked wrong because he didn't get the answer in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just awful. So the kids who are creative and who can think out of the box and who have a deeper understanding are penalized in our system.
Mm-hmm.
Life is made more difficult for them.
Mm-hmm.
They're told that they're wrong. They need to do it this way. And most of our tests are time tests. It's important that you get so many right answers in a certain amount of time. Well, the way to get right answers in a short amount of time is to memorize everything. Then you don't have to think, because thinking takes time. Thinking and mental process is not a quick process. That takes time to consider. And if you're deriving everything from first principles, well, it's going to take you more time. So you won't do as well on the test because the tests are created for people who memorize. It's an unfortunate attitude that we have a whole bunch of little cogs for the big industrial machine. People who are happy just turning their crank, and doing that day after day in this big machine, and they don't ask questions and they don't make trouble, and they are just like everybody else. And that's kind of what we've, I think, purposely done. We've created our social system, and our educational system is a great producer of cogs for a wheel, for wheels and gears in a big industrial machine someplace. And thinking out of the box is usually punished. Now, there's a few who think out of the box and get away with it. And those few, that 1/10 of 1%, is what gives us all of our breakthroughs, all of our big understandings and new inventions is just that very small group of people who do that. But still, they are kept in line socially by our social standards, so that even though they can think out of the box in this field, they're still expected to act like everybody else, dress like everybody else, think like everybody else. And if they're too different, well, we call them weirdos and kind of push them aside, and we are afraid of them, actually.
Yeah.
The culture's afraid of them. So you're right there. And that's one of the things that will fix itself once people have a bigger picture. As people grow up and have a bigger understanding of what life is about, who they are, then much of the dysfunction we have in our culture will just disappear with that understanding. It's not like we're going to have to go fix it, build a better machine. It'll just naturally evolve into a kinder, gentler, more productive space for everyone. And you won't have to really design that new thing. It'll just come about all by itself. And a thing for people to understand is that the people that we find to be part of the problem, the greedy corporate CEOs, or the politicians who lie and cheat, we think that's the problem, and if we could get rid of those people, everything would be fine. But they'd just be replaced by other people just like them. What we need to do is change ourselves, and then those people will just go away. We won't have to grab them and pull them out of their positions. They will just evolve like the rest of us. And the CEOs will care about the communities they're in, and about the people who work for them, and about their customers. And making money will only be something that's necessary as to keep the venture going and going strong. It won't be, let's see how much money we can collect and how rich we can all become. It won't be a motivation anymore. So all those problems aren't basic fundamental problems. They're all just symptoms of our low quality of consciousness. And once we, the people, increase the quality of our consciousness, those symptoms will disappear all by themselves. We won't have to engineer the perfect economic system. The perfect economic system probably doesn't exist, because it's probably changes from time to time depending on the needs of the people, and it will just automatically change as needed.
Yeah.
So it'll all take care of itself. It's all us. We have to change. We have to change.
This statement of yours, Tom, like we need to change ourselves. It's a verse in chapter I got, and it says the system will not change you. You need to change yourselves. So basically, the larger consciousness system that we call, and I call MLA, you call it LCS. MLA is, for me in Arabic, the Quranic terms, Allah wa malaikatuhu, which means the system is not going to change you. You need to change yourselves, because that's our purpose on earth. It's a school that we need to change ourselves. And once we change ourselves, the president or the director, the CEO is going to be among us, and then he's going to be just like us. So as long as we didn't change ourselves, things are changing a bit in America. When I came 30 years ago, and I went to teach in the engineering school at Syracuse University, the first class I walk in, and the kids were so frightened. They're opening to look at their schedules. Is she the right professor? Like, they're looking at their things. And then I looked at them, of course, because I'm the only one covered at the university back then. They were like, are we with the right class, with the right professor? This is engineering. How can we have a Muslim woman as an engineer? They were frightened. So I remember I just gave them that laugh and love, and I told them, listen, you're not here to become a Muslim. You're here to learn engineering, and I am a good engineer. And in fact, after that, I received like the all the awards. The kids go and nominate me for the awards, and they loved me. Um, Even what made me stop getting my PhD was I was gonna transfer to go to math education because math in America was awful. These are supposed to be engineers coming
Mm.
out of Syracuse
Oh,
University.
yeah.
And then they come to me, a simple thing in math, they can't do it. So I would volunteer on my weekends to teach them the math courses, redo the math courses that they took in high school and in engineering school to help them understand,
Mhm.
the engineering problems. So then when I wanted to transfer, I remember to go to math education, the head of the department of the engineering school, and he was also the vice president of the university. He was supposed to write the recommendation letter for me to send it to the Department of Education. By mistake, he sent it to me. And I think the LCS did it for a reason. So when he sent it to me by mistake, I got that email. He said, she's born a teacher. Basically, she doesn't need to do the PhD. I was like, aha, that's something for me to know. I'm not supposed to get the PhD. That's when I quit. I said, I'm just going to go to college. I'm going to just go teach and educate kids and volunteer my time. So when I went to college to teach in college, I stopped the PhD, went to teach in college. It was a shock for me. These kids, like, I wrote about it in my book. I said the gatekeepers, these kids, they come and they say, I hate math. I just need that course to get the degree. I go like, why? My teacher in the third grade said, you don't do math. You're not supposed to be good in math. They just destroy them at young age. So, I switch my math courses to the first 15, 20 minutes playing with consciousness. I tell them like, let us just visualize we are all getting A. I just do it naturally. We're all getting A at the end of the semester. And then my grading system was against the American system. You know how they give you have to do 100 point and blah, blah, blah. So me, I would give them like 50 problems, okay? And I grade them on 25. They don't know that. I just tell them, do whatever you can and we'll see. So I grade each one on his potential, what they can do. So then, out of 50, they're going to be graded on 25 only. So they're going to get 50% and they pass the class with an A. After that, those kids started to realize, I'm good at math. I can get an A. They come back to take the next level with me. And it's all needed some consciousness, awareness. You can do it. You have the power.
Mhm.
And I've always told all my kids, there is no difference between me and you. They tell me, no, you're different. You have psychic abilities. I say, no, I developed them when I realized they work. Because I remember whenever I go to an exam and I get what I want, I started to say, oh, that works. Just like you said, your aha moment with Bob, my aha moment was just at young age, like, oh, that works. I can get A's in every exam. So I'm trying to teach the new generation of kids, use your intuition and then use your intellect, then you'll be free. But it's so much fear in these kids about woman, Muslim, math, this, it's all fear-based. So
Mhm.
as I feel myself, like lots of people tell me, why do you cover? I say, I have to cover. I need to show those kids I am a Muslim and I'm normal and we can be here, we can love each other, we can care. You should not care about the dress code or how I pray. What matters is I love you and I want the best for you. In fact, sometimes I joke with my husband. I tell him, Tom keeps telling us to let go of fear. I'm trying to let go of love because I love people so much. So, so there's a lots of work to be done. But in general, I feel, Tom, if we can just find a way to make your teaching much simpler to these people and put it as a curriculum for the little ones, we will do a great job to help humanity
Mhm.
evolve. Just like I'm trying to put the Quran, I did put a new curriculum for my Quranic students. It took me forever, 25 years, to finally put the curriculum from the age of 4 all the way to college. how to understand Quran with time and helps you to evolve to have a good, conscious, aware life with, basically based on love, like you say. And when you love the other unconditionally, you just look at him, they're playing their turn. Like, I go everywhere and I look at them like, you're just playing your God. I mean, it's not gonna bother me, you know.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah, if we could, it would be very, very difficult to do in our school system, but if we could teach things like critical thinking, how to think for yourself, how to know the difference between facts and opinions. Most people
People
just
know that.
don't have a clue, the difference between a fact and opinion. And there's a lot of things they call facts that are not facts at all.
Yeah.
And I guess also facts, opinions, and beliefs. Just for kids to appreciate, those kinds of things, to be creative, to understand deeply, to question, to always
Questioned
question.
fire. I questioned fire all my life. People, at young age, they teach you, when you die, if you don't do good, you go to fire. And I always said to myself, I can't take that, God. I just can't see a God putting me in fire. I just can't accept that. I just couldn't. I was always questioning this hellfire business.
Mhm.
I mean, how, and what was not logic for me, and I always share it with my kids and my students, how can you come to Earth for 20, 30 years, and let's say you didn't do well? It's not my fault that I was born in a family that's not aware. Okay, so I'm born to an alcoholic father or whatever, and then I die and he puts me in fire for eternity? Doesn't make sense. What type of God is that? So, or for example, they make you believe like a woman, if she does not listen to her husband, he has the right to beat her up. If he's going to beat me, then what are his kids going to be like? So, what type of
Yeah.
system is this? So I questioned this God all my life until I was, how once you question, that's why I don't believe in the word religion. I just believe in the system. There is only one system, a good morality, ethics, all of that in that system. When you inquire and you ask, you will be guided. So every question I had in my life, I found the answer, whether in the Quran or in your model. There is not a question that I didn't ask and I didn't receive. So it is open encyclopedia for people. If we can just help
Sure.
them to just get to that, I call it the book of life. Even the Quran mentioned that this book of life is for those who are aware. Once you become aware and you let go of the fear, and the fear is from ego. It's that separate self. I call the ego the separate self. When you
Mhm.
go away from yourself, then you are just lost. And then once you're lost, you develop that strong fear. So if we can just like slowly do it, I mean, I still have hope that we
Yeah.
can do it. And pardon, I don't know, people will get together just like I was guided to you, to the MBT group. Now we have this weekly healing sessions. I'm sure we're going to get to weekly educational sessions and come up with
Mhm.
a new curriculum outside this public school system. And then with time, they're going to embrace that. Like my center that
Yes.
I created my center for my children. And then lots of kids benefited with my own children. And it was basically teaching the teachings of the Quran with a skeptic mind. I tell the students, question every verse, question every word, question every speaker, and question me, not because I'm your teacher. You take it from me. I'm speaking from my experience. I want to hear your experience.
Mhm.
So now I developed kids that I can't even handle their brain anymore.
That's good. Yeah, that's very good. We need to not spoon feed our children the beliefs that we want them to have. We need to develop their minds so that they can come to their own conclusions, so that
Yeah.
they can think, they can make good judgments. They know the difference between facts and things that are not facts. and that they understand that there's a bigger world. It's not just about the objective stuff, that's not only just a piece of it, but that's a small piece of it. That's not even the greater piece. It would be nice if we could start, in kindergarten, with very young kids, and help them understand bigger pictures, and help them develop that intuitive mind that they have and use all the time. Young children know a whole lot more than they let on, because their understanding is intuitive, but they can't yet express that understanding because they don't have language skills.
Yeah.
So, they're 1 year old or 2 years old or 3, and their language skills are very, very rudimentary. But what they understand about their life, about themselves, about their parents, about their home and so on, is a lot more profound and deep than what you think. Because we look at them and we think they can only think at the level at which they can speak. But that's not true. They can't put it all together in language because they don't have that skill yet. But it doesn't mean that they don't understand a lot and pick up a lot and know a lot about what's going on and why it's going on. And we need to tap that part and encourage that part of their mind as well. Keep them creative, keep them thinking, keep them always questioning, always be skeptical of everything. I agree with you, everything. And the person you need to be most skeptical of is yourself, because we're all very, very good at telling ourselves how great we are and how right we are. And we need to be very skeptical of that.
Every time I look, Tom, at the story of creation from the Quran, it refers like there were so many humanoids before the Homo sapiens. And then, the system wanted to expand and, of course, had it doesn't say created IUOCs. This is the beauty of how the words in the Quran are very specific, because the IUOCs were not created, were from source, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it talks about creating the avatar. So I always point to people how the Quran was very specific about IUOCs are part of it, of source, part of consciousness, only one
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, and every IUOC. You call IUOC, which is just, if someone did not hear before, the word IUOC is, you mean individuated unit of consciousness,
Yeah.
which is basically, let's say, the consciousness that's driving the body of Fatma, because the Quran calls it the driver, the consciousness that's
Mm-hmm.
driving the body of Fatma. But what I liked about when the Quran is talking about the story of the Homo sapiens and the development of the bodies, it says like the expansion of the consciousness happened through the intellect. So our intellect is very powerful if we can, use it the proper way. If we learn, like you said at the beginning of this session, you were talking about balancing and using the two at their most, you know. But right now we zero in this, and we also lost this basically just memorizing. So now we're not really using the intellect, we're using the memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
and that's why there's so much dysfunction in the world. We're
yeah,
just not seeing bigger pictures. We're not thinking. We're just following along like so many sheep. We get disinformation. People grab hold of it and turn it into beliefs, and other people have their own disinformation. They turn that into beliefs, and then we're angry with each other. And yes, it's quite a big mess just because we don't teach our children to be skeptical and to think and
to be
help,
themselves.
and become themselves and just be a piece of consciousness with all that entails.
Mhm. We have a lots of copy and paste.
Yeah.
And a human being are not supposed to be like that. It's not like what you call in your model a non-player. How do you call it?
Yeah, an NPC, a non-player character. Yeah,
Yes.
an NPC it's like an avatar, except it's being played by the larger consciousness system. So
Yes.
it's a part of the simulation, and it looks like it's a part of the physical world here, and
Mhm.
it is a part of the physical world, but it's not an IUOC. It's the system playing that character for a particular reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I came across the NPC in the Quranic terms when it was talking about the expansion of consciousness through Mary, the mother of Jesus. And then an NPC came to her, is basically took a form of a human to give her the news of
Yeah.
this, you know, born that she's gonna have this boy
Mm-hmm.
that is gonna be this person. It's basically expansion of constant. I've encountered these in my own experience in my life. One time I was in an airport and they had zero money with me. I was a kid with two kids. I was a kid with two kids. I was only 22, a mother of two boys, and I was in the airport and they had no money with me. And the people in the airport told me, "You need to pay so much." And I was like, "Where am I going to get the money from? I don't have a credit card with me at that time, with no credit card, nothing." And then out of nowhere, this person out of nowhere came in, paid the fee, and disappeared. So I knew is like, uh-huh, that's the system. That's why I said
Yeah.
once you start to work with the system, you learn that they're always there for you. Like, and
Yeah.
then it gives you that confidence. Like every time you need, you just like go like, uh-huh, it's time to call. I need help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just ran into a girl
Mhm,
who was someplace in Eastern Europe. I'm thinking like Latvia or some place like that. And she tells a story about how she was on vacation with her family, but she was feeling very sad and some depressed. And she went out and sat down
mhm,
near the uh, behind this house that they had rented by the beach. And she was just sitting there kind of in melancholy and thinking about her life and what was she going to do.
mhm.
And this guy walks up to her and he says, it's none of my business, but you need to read this book. And he showed her a copy of My Big Toe.
Oh
Says, you
my
need to read this book. And then he kind of walked off and disappeared. And he was a delivery guy or something like that. How he was dressed, and she said he just came out of nowhere and just disappeared into nowhere. And she said I went right out and got the book, and it changed my life. And now I'm happy, and my life is good. And I thought, yep, that's an NPC. That's what she needed to get that information. And the,
Yeah, it's like my experience with you. Remember, I shared it. I don't know if you remember. I shared it maybe with you, or maybe you done. I was like, okay, I've done with the Quran. I did all my research about it. I want someone who does the science. So I was listening at Bruce Lipton, biology, but I don't understand biology as much as I understand physics because it's my background. And I'm like, I really need someone who put the theory and the theory of everything. I know Einstein started it and all of that, but it was not complete. I studied relativity in physics and I'm like, I just need the person who has it. I'm asking for this person who has it.
mhm,
And here I mean, out of body experience, I am with you, and you were in so much light, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I saw you, I saw your name, I saw the book, I saw everything, came back, Amazon.com, buy the book." And once I got the book, I started to read and I finished first book one, book two. I said, like, what do I have to read book three? I bought it as auditorial. I still didn't listen to book three, but then I moved to the videos, like I said before. So you'll get those nudges.
mhm,
And I know because I had experience with the system. For example, when my son was a 5-year old, he got sick back home in Algeria, and I'm here doing my graduate school. So I was like, the feeling of a mother. I just wanted to talk to my son daily. And at that time, AT&T calling, $4 per minute. So I'm calling Algeria every day. I didn't care for a month. So now the end of the month, I'm waiting for this bill and I'm saving $3,000 or $4,000 to pay the bill. And then like the bill came $50, just the basics. Where is the international? Not there. So nice me, honest person, like we grew up with like the that Sufi culture, authenticity is everything. So I'm calling AT&T. Hello, you guys forgot to charge me for my all international calls.
Mhm.
And they looked everywhere. They said we have zero phone calls to Algeria for the entire month. So I know who's doing this. Must be the system.
Yeah.
So it was free calls to Algeria for a month.
Yeah.
So
And
once
things,
you learn this, it's amazing. Like
oh yes.
you feel like
Life, yeah, life is just like that. Everything, basically, everything you need falls at your feet just as you need it.
exactly.
And your whole life it becomes that way when when you're trying to do the right thing, when you get rid of a certain amount of fear and have a good attitude in life, it is just phenomenal
Mhm.
how everything that you need just falls right in front of your feet, just as you need it.
As you need.
And it's just like that, and your whole life is that, and it seems like you're charmed. You know, you're the luckiest person in the world, but it it just comes from being a good person. It comes from trying to do the thing, trying to grow, trying to become better, being aware of other people. But my life's been that way too. You know,
Yeah.
everything, I wouldn't change any of the things that happened to me. At the time, I thought some of them were terrible and awful and stressful. And I look back at them and I say, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I needed that.
You learn from it.
And yeah, and I could see how just everything has built to my advantage,
Mhm. Yeah.
and to teach me lessons. And some of it was hard, and some of it was stressful, but it was hardness and stress that I needed. There were lessons in there that I needed to learn. So I look back at my life and I wouldn't change a bit of it. It's all was just the way it needed to be.
And that's what we really want to teach. Like, I honestly went through a lots of challenges. It's not easy to come to America as a Muslim woman at the age of 18 and then divorced with two boys. And then I was like, even just with high school diploma when I divorced with two boys. Now I have like four masters and few, healing certificates and things like that. And they raised six kids and all of that. But all the challenges that I went through, like you say, there's always that moment that I am just connecting. Okay, now what's next in my journey? And
Hmm.
I wanted people to realize all these problems and challenges. And the Quran stated clearly, like you're on earth to grow, to be tested. The next push helps you. And it's not punishment. People look at suffering as punishment. And me, I look at it like this is just a tough problem in math to make you get to the next level.
Uh,
Hard problems help you to get to the next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So between my life and my math teaching, I feel like I wanted to share it with the entire world. Like I'm constantly telling people, you guys don't realize the beauty in the challenges.
Hmm.
And then, of course, sometimes when we have our down moment, we had you offering an immersive. I remember when I got to my moments like, okay, nobody is getting it. I'm just going to quit all of that. You appeared in my life. I came to the immersive, and you were like, "You can change people." I was like, "I know that. I memorized the verse when I was like a child, but why? I'm still trying to change people." But in that immersive time, you really helped me to realize just coach. So then I went back, and that was about, I met you a decade ago. I went back to my center with the attitude of, I'm just here to coach. You guys have to do the work on your own.
Hmm.
And with my kids, it doesn't affect me anymore. I had challenges with some of my children. And then later on, I'm not here for you. I'm here to coach you. You're here for yourself.
Exactly.
I'm here
Exactly.
for my own
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. Be a good coach. Don't try to tell people how to live their life and what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. That's not helpful. That's kind of usurping their free will, and their growth is going to take them through some painful times.
Yeah.
They're going to have to feel some pain before they wake up to what's causing that pain and how do I need to change,
Mm-hmm.
and just coach them, be there for them when they're ready to talk. Give them the information they need, but then let them do with it the way they want. You'll get more traction that way, and you'll help them so much more than if you think, oh, I know what these people need. Obviously, they need to learn this and that and the other thing, so I'll teach them. And they've pushed back. They don't want to learn those things that you want to teach them because they don't understand that that's what they need. And they have to understand it on their own, otherwise they won't learn anything from it.
Yeah, and I found I was guided, whatever I said, whatever you say something, I'm guided directly to a verse. So I was, I memorized the Quran when I was young, but when you memorize something, you may forget here and there until you're guided to get to it again. So I was
Mhm.
guided to this verse that Muhammad is not supposed to force people to believe in his message. Muhammad is supposed to just deliver the message. And then I was guided to another chapter that's talking to Muhammad, basically telling him that's not the right approach. And I'm saying if someone known as a messenger of this, religion known as religion of Islam, but I call it the system of Islam is really peace. So the system of getting to peaceful life, basically, with
Mhm.
everything. So when that system gets established, we will all be living in a peaceful life. So when I was guided to that chapter, I said like, oh wow, it's really powerful. We're not here to go this way or that way and be after that person. Just coach, just tell them this is what I feel is right for my own experience. Try it, but you cannot override the free will. It's
Mhm.
really clear. It says La ikraha fid din in Arabic. It's basically no one can go to another person and override their free will. And one thing that just came to my mind, Tom, as we speak, is part of your picto is you keep saying lower entropy. To lower entropy, as a physicist, I understand it is putting in how you measure the disorder. Entropy is
Mhm.
to measure disorder. Lower entropy is basically put things in order. The Quran has over 100 chapter, I mean 100 verses asking people to put things in order and make sure to guard, you know, the order in the society. It emphasizes on order in the society more than the order in the self. So when I was digging in the Quran, I found there are three types of command. Basically, when we say command, is you don't have to do it, but it's better if you do it because it's coming from the larger consciousness system, the message as like lower entropy within you is basically put yourself in order. And I teach my students constantly. I say, wake up and start with your own bedroom. Fix your bed. Make sure you use the bathroom. You clean the bathroom after you. Don't let anyone fix your stuff. Clean your own garbage, basically. That will put you in a good order. Then go and appreciate that you have a new day. So that putting you in a good order, in a good momentum, like in a we say the present moment. Present is a gift. Moment has the same root word of momentum. You build a good
Mhm.
momentum, a good day. And then there are verses that emphasize putting order in the society. So we need to have some rules and regulations that help us have an order. You don't drive as drunk and you think like you can get away with it. That's not a good order because you're going to harm other people. So we need to set the rules and the regulations in the society that can help lower that entropy. And the highest order that the Quran talks about it is really that connection, because once you're connected and you are aware of yourself, you are aware who you are, that will put you in order. So I always feel we're supposed to evolve to be self-governed. I don't need a government to tell me don't speed when you drive. And that's what I understand from the Quran. And then I found you say the exact same thing, lower
Mhm.
the entropy. So because I'm a clean freak, that's why I use the clean as example. But you don't no,
Yeah.
I was even cleaning your park, remember the
Yeah.
first time I was exposed to the park?
Yes, well, a lot of people misunderstand the entropy idea. It is about, creating order. And then they'll say, well, a dictator with a big army, enforces order. He enforces everybody to do what he wants to do, and that's order. He's lowering entropy. And I say, well, okay, he is lowering entropy in one very small dysfunctional way, but he's creating entropy in a huge way. He's messing with people's lives. He's jerking people around. He's creating this huge amount of disorder.
Mhm.
And a little bit of order in the objective world, in the physical world, but a huge amount of disorder in the world of consciousness and being, and in the subjective world. And I
Mhm.
said, it's really the subjective world that counts. It's not the order in the objective world. It's not that if you take all the rocks, in your neighborhood and put them in a line, that's a great deed that will, help you, grow up. Well, yes, it creates a little bit of order, but it also could be a nuisance for people if those rocks go over sidewalks and over lawns and other things. So you have to understand that by putting some things in order, particularly in
Mhm.
the physical world, you can create lots and lots of disorder within the consciousness world.
Mhm.
And we want to lower entropy totally everywhere in all the worlds.
Physical.
So a dictator with a big army is not lowering entropy. It's just a tiny little bit that's inconsequential compared to the huge amount of entropy that dictator creates by interfering with the lives and free will of other people.
Mhm.
So you have to see the bigger picture with that. It is about order, but it's big picture. It's order within the system, and
Within
the
the system.
system
Yep.
is consciousness. So when you talk about entropy, you have to talk about entropy within a system. The system has to be defined, and in this case, the system is consciousness, and that's where we need to create order.
Yeah.
Not necessarily by lining a bunch of rocks up in a row. That's an order of a sort, but not the sort that helps. Now, if you take those rocks and you build a wall out of them that keeps your sheep from falling in a hole or something, you make a little fence out of them. Okay, you've created some order, and it's a good thing. You've lined all your rocks up, and now the sheep are safer because they won't fall down this cliff or something that they might have otherwise without the wall. So you can reduce entropy with physical things, but that's really small bits, small stuff. It's the entropy inside of you. It's
Yeah.
the dysfunction, the fear. It's all of the disorder that's in your mind and in your soul and in your self that is the problem. That's the entropy we need to lower. We need to get rid of that disorder because fear is a high entropy thing. Fear is all about self. It's self-centered. It's high entropy. It's all about you. It's not about love. It's not about caring. It's not about other. It's just about you, and it's a very high entropy thing. So when we talk about lowering entropy of consciousness, that basically reduces to getting rid of fear.
Thank you, Tom, for clarifying this, because me, when I speak all the time, I'm speaking from my point of view. I live in the consciousness world,
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm glad you clarified that because, like, yeah, it's like we say, mind leads, body follow. So if you lower your entropy, your at we say consciousness level, let go of your fears, of course it's gonna show in the physical world.
Mhm.
Gonna manifest in the physical world in a way. It's always mind leads, body follows.
Yes, yes. And you'll find that as you get rid of your fear and you become a lower entropy person, your interactions within the objective world and the physical world tend to also, lower entropy. You tend to be neater. You make your bed.
Yeah.
You pick up after yourself. All of those things just become something that you want to do.
Yeah,
It's
you
just,
become
it's just,
self-governed.
yeah, it's just neater that way.
Yeah.
And you'll find that even trivial things in your life. You'll be, arranging, the all the spoons and knives, you're
Okay.
arranging them in the drawer rather than having them jumbled in the drawer. And
Yeah.
instead
I
of
even
just,
mean the the hangers in the closet, they have to be like in patterns. Let's start with the
yeah,
colors.
right. So
You don't
you
have to do
get,
it everywhere.
so people will think there's something wrong with you, all those forks don't have to be lined up, they can all just be jumbled in there together. You can reach in and get one, but you tend to just have a tendency to create order because it is nicer. It is easier if you have pattern. If all your hangers are in a certain place, then it's easier to find the things you want.
Yeah.
And if all of your forks are in a nice little row sitting in it, it's easier to reach in and pick one that's not entangled and, tangled up with some other one that you have to, it just makes life more of a flow,
Yeah.
of an ease to do that. And it becomes just the way you are as a low entropy person. It shows in how you do things in the rest of the world. You're constantly uh, uh,
Things in order.
ordering and using I guess the order is the only good word. You're ordering things in such a way to make life smoother and
Yeah.
easier and more pleasant and
Yeah.
prettier. Just
Much better. Yeah.
art, is kind of an ordering function. When you look at art and it makes your house or your room feel warmer and nicer, well, that's lower entropy. And you become sensitive to those sorts of things more as you
Mhm.
as you grow up. So yeah,
It's true.
it's just the part of the way you become.
You become
It's not
exactly.
something you do out of your intellect. It's just
It's the
something you
becoming.
are. Yeah.
It's yeah, it's like you work yourself on becoming a better human, like, you know, and also it frees you from depending on others. You keep trying to do things on your own, and then it frees also others. Like I notice when I go to hotels or to restaurants, I see people like they just leave things the way they are. I can't even leave the table until I make sure I stack you know, the dishes for the girl. She comes, they find them neat before I leave the hotel. I make sure like I move things, what they have to wash and what they have to do.
Hmm.
So you just feel like, okay, I make my life easier and their life easier. Like, we are here to help each other self-govern and put
Hmm.
order and don't be a burden on anyone. Like it becomes like, a better collective. I don't know, that's how I see it,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no one feels like you don't feel like you are someone and trying to use the others. You feel like, "No, we're here as,
Hmm.
one consciousness expanding, expressing itself, and helping each other to evolve the system," because the system evolves through us, through that expression.
Yeah.
It's like it's not like that separation of there is a God up there watching us what we're doing. It's all within. It's all one.
Yes. Yeah. That's a thing to point out. I guess that it's not about behavior. It's about being.
Yeah,
It's who you are and what you are, not how you act.
yeah.
That's important. We don't want to generate a whole world full of good actors who are
No,
acting nice and acting polite and acting, with order. We want people who are polite and are nice and are caring, and that order is just natural to them. It's just an
natural. Yeah,
expression of who they are. Yeah, it's another point that confuses people. It's not about behavior.
yeah.
Good behavior is nice. It's civilizing, and we all like good behavior, but that's not how you grow up. It's not just the good behavior has to come not from the fear of not doing it right, but it has to come from an expression of just who you are. You're
Mhm.
a good person.
Well, one more last thing, Tom, I wanted to share with you that I also find that, like, when you speak, I was guided to that verse as well, is this verse that says, Allah knows Samawat al-Ard, it's an Arabic term for Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. So I just translated heavens because they usually translated heavens, but it's talking about all these dimensions. So everything in existence is just a spark of light from the source light of everything. So we are basically part of that light, part of that consciousness. Like the three words in the Quran that kept ringing in my ear every time I come to your immersives or like the advanced explorers is you talk with one consciousness, one thing, one system, all of that. I found the Quran brings it also one. Like there is the word nur, which is light, in the Quran never came in plural, always just one light. So it's not like there's that separation. These are in the darkness and we are enlightened being and all of that. No, it's all one light, it's all one consciousness. The difference is just in the becoming. Some people are becoming more aware of it and utilize it, like, express their potential at the maximum that they can. And some people are just not aware of it. And I feel if we can, like people like you, I see myself just a student still, learning from you and other masters. If we can just help our kids, my kids and their kids and the new generation, live for them and coach them toward just becoming more aware and work on their becoming. I feel like if you can just say something about this, so we can, end with that as kind of something the audience will take it.
Well, as one grows up in this reality of consciousness, as one grows up and becomes less fearful and more caring, there's not anything special you have to do. You just have to be. If you can get rid of your fears, you don't really have to ask, well, what can I do? Just be. The doing will come all by itself. You don't have to have a plan of how you're going to save the world. You just become love and everything will take care of itself. That's kind of just like everything falls at your feet just as you need it. Those
Hmm.
things you need to do, you will just meet them and run into them and get involved in them and do them just because you're ready for that, to do that thing, to be helpful. So you don't have to do a lot of planning. You don't have to do a lot of control. You just have to be open and grow up and just interact with the world in a natural way. That's my wife, when she was pregnant with her first child, she was worried about whether or not she'd be a good parent. And I'd already had a child, so I had been a parent and was a parent. And my advice to her was, I said, if you just get your own head on straight and act natural, you'll do everything perfectly. You just have to get rid of your own fears. It's your fear that creates the problem. There really isn't a problem there. The only problem she would have with parenting is her fear of not being a good parent. So you just let that go and be, keep love in your heart so you care about everyone and the world and everything in it. And then you just do life as it comes to you without much of a plan. If there's a plan needed, the system will provide the plan. It will put you in the right place at the right time and meet the right people at the right time. And it just will take care of it. So it's a very easy thing to do. This is not real difficult. You don't need an advanced degree. You don't need to spend a life in a monastery someplace. All you have to do is be aware who you are and what you are, that you're a piece of consciousness, understand what that means, and then just live your life as it comes to you while you continually try to grow and make good choices and lower entropy for yourself and for the system through your choices, and then let everything else work out however it does. No big plan is necessary. So it's in a way, it's a very, very simple philosophy. Just a very, very simple, straightforward philosophy. In another way, it's very, very hard because you have to get rid of that fear,
Yeah.
you see, and getting rid of that fear is the hard thing. Getting rid of that fear is the difficult thing, and that's what you have to focus on. But if you just have an intent, I
Mhm.
want to get rid of that fear, not because I don't want to act that way, it's because I don't want to be that way.
Mhm.
And I really want to get rid of that fear, then you will,
Mhm.
because your intent will modify probabilities to where you will end up making the right choices and you will have the situations where you can get rid of that fear. So you just have to want to get rid of the fear, want to grow up, want to care. And if you truly do, then life will pretty much take care of itself. Relationships will take care of themselves. Whether you're a good parent, that'll take care of itself. You'll be a wonderful parent.
Mhm.
So it's in some ways it is just so simple, but you have to want to get rid of the fear. You have to see who you are. You have to see the fear, because until you see that fear and own it, yes, that's me. That's the fear I have. You can't get rid of what you don't own. So first you have to recognize this is a fear. This is a dysfunction I have. Then you have to have an intent to not be that way, and not just a casual intent. You know, you have to really want to not be that way in a very serious way, and it will just, in time, that fear will go away, and you won't be that way, and you'll feel like a big load has been taken off of your shoulders, and life gets so much easier and happier.
Mhm.
So it's a hard thing to do, in that we have to change who we are, not just change our behavior, but change who we are. So for many people, that's tough, but the reward is terrific. If you can do that, all of your life gets not only easier, but more fun. You'll find joy, you'll find happiness, you'll find satisfaction and peace. Your relationships will be good. And it doesn't matter if that other person in your relationship has a lot of fear or not. If you don't, the relationship's still good. You see, it doesn't make your happiness dependent on the people around you. Your happiness is self-contained,
Mhm.
and you care about people. So you just have to want it
Mhm.
enough to change who you are. And then you will be convinced that you want more. You want to change more. You want to get rid of more of that fear, because your life keeps getting better and everything in it. You're getting more happy and everything's working for you. And yes, things do fall in front of your feet just as you need them. And indeed, it becomes life becomes joyful. Even the hard parts are
Mhm.
joyful, because, like you say, you look at difficulties as just another lesson. Oh, this is a puzzle. This is a challenge. Okay, I've got this hard difficulty to deal with. What's the best way to deal with it? What's the low entropy solution to this hard problem? And then just go do it, and come back and look at it later and say, well, what I did, was that a good thing? Did it actually, you know, was it good choices that I made? And if the answer is yes, well, they're good, then keep doing those things. And if it's no, well, realize you still have work to do. You should change yourself. So being authentic is important, just being you. But also you have to not just be you and not give a damn how the authentic you interacts with other people. You have to be yourself and be aware of how that authentic you interacts with other people, and change yourself if it's a problem. But at least if you're authentic, you can change yourself. If
Mhm.
you're not authentic, if you're living in your image of who you think you would like to be, or who you think you should be, rather than who you are, then you can't change yourself, because you don't own yourself. You don't really have yourself. So it's doubly hard now to get rid of those fears. So first step is to own them,
Oh,
get
that.
authentic, and then become aware of, how does that play in the world? Is that a good thing, my being authentic? Am I lowering entropy everywhere? Is my relationships all great? Or am I creating havoc everywhere with my authentic self? And then change.
As you mentioned, Tom, own your fears, it came to my mind, because like I said, I learned a lots of stories from the Quran of all the prophets and the saints and all of them throughout history. And Moses was asked to let go of his fears to go face Pharaoh. So Moses was like, but I have fear that I killed one of them. He was like mentioning all the things that he's fearful of. So then he was guided by the system. Yes, like we know what you're fearful of, but you need to face it, basically, like you said, own it. And then he was told, just go with this message. In the end, we will be there with you. So it just goes exactly like I'm like remembering those verses as you're speaking as like a real life in humanity of someone like, locating his own fears. And then he was told, just go face them and we will be there with you. And if you don't take that step, okay, like I have fear, for example, of public speaking, or I have fear of this or that. Okay, locate it and then just go face it and then work on it. Then the system will extend and help you to go
Mm-hmm.
through it. Like it,
Exactly.
like when I recall, like again, when I said like coming to the States as a girl with the hijab 30 years ago was extremely difficult, and it became even harder in the period of 911, and people had all those fears. But I remember like, no, I need to face those fears. I don't care. I'm not doing anything wrong. Like you said, this is the authentic me. I'm going to still go and teach.
Mm.
And I remember, the kids had fear to even taking courses with me, but I said, I still need to face that and get over it. People have to grow and they have to learn not to judge by, don't judge the book by the cover or the title. They have to go through it. So if we don't face those fears, I would have just been home, just like scared to be even out.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
we have to just like get out and face everything that is like stopping us from growing, like face it
Yeah.
and go through it, and the system will be there. So it goes back, Tom, to our point of connecting. You are consciousness. Connect. Don't be led by your ego. Don't be led by your illusion, like what you identify yourself with. So just remember, don't be identified but why people call you. Like I always tell my students, don't be fooled like you are Dr. So and so or engineer so and so. Those are titles and names and things. But the real you has no doctor next to it.
Yeah.
The real you is an IUOC that has no doctor into it or teacher. it's just an IUOC. Maybe because like we get the abstract word more, we can see it. But I hope that everybody can see the real you is not what you identify with. It's not the name or the title you gathered in this, like you call it, virtual reality, in this
Yes.
illusion.
Yeah. You mentioned the word judgmental, and I'd like to just say a little something about that before we end.
Yeah.
And people's fears tend to make them judgmental. And when we're judgmental, that's coming from our ego, it's coming from our beliefs, and it's a it's a really big problem because what it does is we jump to these conclusions about
Mhm.
all sorts of people and things when it's not right. It doesn't fit all kinds of people and things. We can't say, well, a lot of people have a very negative attitude toward Islam because in their mind, Islam is suicide bombers, you know? But your Islam has nothing to do with suicide bombers. They're not part of Islam. They're some dysfunction of Islam. So people have to not be so judgmental about others, about others' attitudes toward their own gender or their sexuality or how they approach life or the careers they have or whether they have doctor in front of their name or they don't have doctor in front of their name, whether they sweep the streets or whether they, are employed in some high tech, making computers. rather than judge people by things like what they do and the titles they have, the religion, that they espouse or the associations they keep. You have to realize that everybody is an individual. And there are people in every religion who are beautiful people, highly evolved people. And there are people in every religion who are awful and horrible people, And there's people who are PhDs who are wonderful people and some who are horrible people. And there are people who sweep floors that are sometimes wonderful people and horrible people. And all of these categories that we tend to be judgmental about, we're judgmental about race. We're judgmental about almost everything, about culture. And in all of those groups of people, there are beautiful people and wonderful people, and there are horrible people. It doesn't, whether you are this religion or that gender or whatever, doesn't make you a good person or a bad person. It just makes you a person. You're an individual person. And we need to not be so judgmental and realize that everybody's an individual. And we have to understand the difference between statistics and individuals. Statistics only speak to ensembles of groups. If you can say, well, these kinds of people, 60% of them are thieves. Well, that's a statistic. But that statistic of 60% of these kind of people are thieves doesn't say anything at all about this one person.
Exactly.
It says nothing about them. Statistics only say something useful about a group, not about an individual. Every individual is his own self.
It's unique.
And is unique and has his own ideas. So you can say, all right, if you randomly pick somebody out of that, it'll be a 60% chance they'll be like this. Well, that's true, but that still says nothing about that individual. So you have to understand that that's one of these understandings about math, right? That we need to get through to people, that statistics and probability says nothing about individuals, has no information about individuals other than some, they'll have a certain percentage probability they might be like this, but says nothing about what they're actually like as an individual. We run into that in medicine a lot. We go in medicine and they'll say, well, okay, your blood test came out like this, so we need to give you this medicine. Well, that's because most people who have that problem get that medicine, but you're not most people. You're an individual. So you have to be careful. They don't shunt you off and give you medicine you don't need because they are applying an attribute of a collective to an individual, and that just doesn't work well. So all of you out there who are listening to this, I'm an individual. Fatima is an individual, and we are just who we are. And we are not representatives of anything, really. We're just ourselves. We represent ourselves in our own path, struggling to grow up in our own way. That's who we are. And,
sharing our love to everyone.
Yeah, and whether we are a part of a religion or whether we're atheists or whether we're this or that is really not relevant. Is not relevant. So that is rampant in our culture now. We have these different groups of believers. We have now multiple realities going on here among our population. Here's a whole bunch of people thinks reality is like this, and another whole bunch that think reality is totally different. And each one thinks the other group doesn't know what they're talking about, and each one thinks the other group is foolish and stupid. And it just causes so much dysfunction and dislike and disharmony that you just have to let all that go and see everybody is doing pretty much the best they can with what they've got, and you should interact with them with caring and with positivity, and
Yeah.
realize that every one of them is a individual.
Yeah.
You know,
If
so
we
you
take
see,
that attitude, Tom, what you're just saying, if we just live with the attitude, I respect your experience and you respect my experience, and we're here to live peacefully. I've always looked at the word Islam really means peace. We live peacefully with each other and help each other grow, we'll have a better world for us, for the planet, for the animals, for
yeah,
everything. And I mean, if we can't hurt animals, we're not going to hurt the humans. So I see people sometimes they are more careful about animals than human, but it should be equally. We should just care about everyone, whether it's animal, whether it's human, just care, like caring, love, care, compassion. That's really, I can't define God. They tell me always, how would you define God? I say, I'm not here in math to give a definition of a concept. I can't define God, but if I have to describe, I would say it's love, care, compassion, anything that's good.
yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to kind of, because
Thank
you know,
you.
here I am a scientist. You're a scientist too, you know, but you're a Muslim and you're very proud to be a Muslim, and you engage, you know, in that environment, and that's wonderful. That's good. You know, and I engage in my things, and both of us are trying to grow and contribute, you know, be part of the solution. And people need to just accept individuals as individuals,
Yeah,
and none of us individuals are perfect. We all are still learning, or we wouldn't be here. You know, we're learning, and this is the place to learn. We're also teaching. Everybody's a teacher.
yeah,
Everybody's a student, and many of your students are also your teachers.
yeah, exactly. I
And
never
all of your
seen
teachers
them.
are also students, you know. So you just have to have be skeptical of everyone
Mhm.
and be positive with everyone, and don't become part of the problem. Try
Yeah,
to be part of the solution. And as soon as you get unhappy, negative, and angry, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. So
yeah,
anytime you have your feelings go into something negative, you're feeling maybe angry, maybe upset, maybe stressed, maybe unappreciated, annoyed. All of those things are negative. Whenever you feel that, you're part of the problem. That is the problem, and you need to change that. Let that feeling go. It's
yeah.
not. It's not helping you. It's not helping solve anything. It's actually making everything worse. And I know most people, they feel negative things every day, almost every hour. They would feel, you know, that to complain about something, to fuss about something, to live in that negative space is what creates the difficulties in your life. If you could just not say anything negative, maybe for a for an hour, and then maybe for a day, and then maybe for a week, you know, maybe for a month.
It
Just
will help.
never say anything negative. You might feel it, but don't say it, and tell yourself, I don't want to feel that way,
Yeah.
you know? And if you could do that, you'd find your life in probably 6 months. You'd
Mhm.
probably find your life turned around 180 degrees.
That's
Everything would be working better
yeah.
in your life. Just doing that one thing, not passing that negativity on to somebody else. Even
Tom, you
better yet, if
always
you can get rid of it out of yourself, but
yeah.
just not passing it on is helpful.
Tom, you always mention it's not the type of religion you follow or whatever. It's all just different tools. You always mention
Yes.
that. And I came from a Muslim family, but my husband was raised with a Catholic mom. So my kids grew up in an interfaith home, and we realized it's all tools.
Yeah,
So my kids
exactly.
always say, like, There is no difference. It's just like you said, is be a good person and be positive and just love the other. So I'm very proud that my kids grew up in this kind of family, like, from both
Mm-hmm.
sides. So
Mm-hmm.
they could experience the East and the West within
Yes,
the same
that's
household.
that's good. See, that gives them you know, a larger view of the
Yeah,
world, a larger view. It used to be that travel was how you got that larger view. The people who never got more than 10 miles away from where they were born, they were very provincial, had a very small view, and usually had all kinds of beliefs, that weren't
yeah,
true and tended to be very negative about everybody else outside.
yeah,
But the people who had traveled a lot just had a bigger picture because they'd seen more things.
yeah,
Well, that's about diversity.
yeah.
Diversity is wonderful. Diversity helps us learn. And
Mhm,
today we have opportunities to travel that nobody has had before. We can travel sitting in front of a computer. We
yeah,
can see people. When there's an earthquake in Indonesia, we can be there. We can watch people right, eyeball to eyeball,
yeah,
see what they're feeling, feel what they're feeling, understand, be with them, and care about them. Whereas before we would not. They're just somebody, oh yeah, some earthquake someplace. I don't even know where Indonesia is, and we just wouldn't care. But now our world is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually we're going to be a family.
yeah.
And
We are a family.
yeah,
Globally, we are a family. We
yeah.
just
We're going
have
to
to
realize
realize,
it though. Yeah,
yeah,
we're going to realize that. Eventually we're going to realize we're a family. That's probably a better way to say it. And this diversity is what helps you grow up, because the more you see and the more you interact, the more things you're exposed to, particularly if you apply open-minded skepticism to all of those things,
yeah,
then you will be a lot more grown up for that. So I think in a way, the internet is a wonderful place. It really gives us a lot of diversity. It gives us some bad things too, but we'll work through all
just
of
like
that.
every tool,
Yeah.
like a knife can help you
Yeah.
cook, and the knife can help you do something bad. So
Yeah,
every
it's
tool we
it's
learn.
it's true. So, let's be kind and gentle and caring with each other, and let's be very positive about all those people in the world who are different than we are.
Exactly.
Yeah, different does not mean worse.
Yeah,
Different does not mean
different.
bad. Different
Exactly.
just means different. And
Different.
that's a good thing, because if we were all just the same, oh, we would hardly learn anything.
Yeah.
We learn from all this difference.
I always told my family, I'm not crazy. I'm just not like you, you know,
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
always looked at me as crazy, especially like, predicting death and things like they can't predict. They say, you're crazy. I go like, I'm not crazy. I'm just not you. Anyway, Tom, thank you for your time. And to end with the joke, we always play the remote viewing. What is Tom going to wear today? I guess I predicted the black.
Well,
So
I looked and I said, well, what would be appropriate? And then I thought, well, Fatima will probably be wearing black. So
and I
I'm
did
going
the
to wear
same thing.
black too.
And I did the same thing, and that's our joke of every time we have the explorers. So it's working. It's a good remote viewing. Yeah. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you liked this video. We will continue to post videos for free on my YouTube channel, but please understand, these videos are expensive to produce. They represent many thousands of hours of production and editing, as well as all the necessary audiovisual equipment, computers, and software. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. It would be very much appreciated. The links are in the description below. Thank you.